The Ripple Effect, a story of kindness. The morning rush at Maple Street Coffee was in full swing when Sarah noticed the elderly man fumbling with his wallet at the counter. His weathered hands shook slightly as coins scattered across the floor, and she could see the embarrassment creeping across his face as the line behind him grew restless. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Melissa, the young barista. "I thought I had enough." Sarah stepped forward without thinking. "I've got it," she said gently, placing a 20 on the counter. "And whatever pastry he'd like to." The man turned to her, his eyes glistening. "You don't have to." "I know," Sarah smiled. "But I want to. My grandfather always said the best part of his day was his morning coffee. Everyone deserves that simple pleasure." As she handed him his change from her 20, the old man clasped her hand briefly. "Thank you, dear. You've reminded me that angels walk among us." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest as she watched him carefully carry his coffee and blueberry muffin to a corner table. She'd been having a rough month. The promotion she'd worked toward had gone to someone else, her car needed expensive repairs, and her apartment rent was increasing. But somehow, this small act of kindness made her own troubles feel more manageable. What Sarah didn't know was that the elderly man, Harold, had been contemplating whether life was still worth living. His wife of 53 years had passed 6 months ago, his children lived across the country, and most mornings he wondered if anyone would notice if he just didn't wake up. But this stranger's unexpected kindness, not just the money, but the way she'd preserved his dignity, reminded him that compassion still existed in the world. Harold spent the next hour in the coffee shop, savoring every sip and bite. When he finished, he noticed Melissa, the barista, looked stressed as she handled the lunch rush alone. Her coworker had called in sick, and she was clearly overwhelmed. "Excuse me, miss," Harold approached the counter during a brief lull. "I used to manage a restaurant. Would you like some help? I don't need payment, just something to do with these old hands." Melissa looked uncertain. "I can't really hire anyone without my manager's permission." "Not hire," Harold chuckled. "Just an old man who knows his way around a coffee machine, offering to help a hard-working young lady." "What do you say?" For the next 3 hours, Harold worked alongside Melissa, sharing stories of his restaurant days while efficiently handling orders. His presence calmed the rushed atmosphere, and several customers commented on the exceptional service. When the afternoon manager arrived, she was amazed to find the shop running more smoothly than it had in weeks. "Harold, was it?" Manager Janet asked. "Would you be interested in some part-time work? We've been needing help with our afternoon shift." Harold's face lit up. "I'd like that very much." As Harold walked home that evening with a new sense of purpose, he passed by the local elementary school where children were getting picked up by parents. He noticed a young boy, Marcus, sitting alone on the steps, looking dejected. "You all right there, son?" Harold asked gently. Marcus looked up, his eyes red from crying. "My mom's late again. She works 2 jobs and sometimes she can't pick me up on time. The other kids make fun of me for always being last." Harold sat down beside him. "Mind if I wait with you? I've got nowhere pressing to be." They talked about school, video games, and Harold's stories of his late wife's legendary chocolate chip cookies. When Marcus's mother, Janet, the same Janet from the coffee shop, finally arrived, she was frantic with apologies. "Marcus, I'm so sorry, the bus broke down and..." She stopped when she saw Harold. "Harold, what are you doing here?" "Just keeping this fine young man company," Harold smiled. "And I believe we've met." As Janet drove home with Marcus chattering excitedly about his new friend Harold, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Working 2 jobs as a single mother was exhausting, and the constant worry about Marcus waiting alone had been eating at her. But perhaps she'd found an unexpected solution. The next day, Janet approached Harold during his shift at the coffee shop. "This might sound strange, but would you be interested in picking up Marcus from school a few days a week? I could pay you, and it would help me immensely." Harold's eyes twinkled. "I'd be honored, but no payment needed, that boy's company is payment enough." And so began an unlikely friendship. 3 afternoons a week, Harold would finish his shift at the coffee shop and walk to the school to collect Marcus. They'd stop by the small park, where Harold would push Marcus on the swings while sharing stories of his youth. Sometimes they'd visit the library, where Harold would help Marcus with homework. Other days, they'd simply walk through the neighborhood, Harold pointing out different types of birds or explaining how the old buildings had changed over the decades. Marcus began to thrive. His grades improved, his confidence grew, and he started bringing Harold's stories to school, captivating his classmates with tales of the olden days. But more importantly, Marcus learned something invaluable from Harold, that kindness was a choice, and it was always the right choice. One afternoon, as they walked past a small apartment building, they heard shouting from an open window. A woman's voice, tired and frustrated, was berating someone about bills and responsibilities. Marcus tugged on Harold's sleeve. "That sounds like Tommy from my class. He's been really sad lately." Harold nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes people shout because they're scared or overwhelmed, not because they're mean. Would you like to do something kind for Tommy?" The next day, Marcus approached Tommy at school. "Hey, do you want to come to the park with me and my friend Harold today? He tells really cool stories, and he's teaching me to whittle." Tommy's face brightened for the first time in weeks. His mother had been stressed about their financial situation, working double shifts and snapping at him more often than usual. The invitation felt like a lifeline. That afternoon, Harold found himself with two young companions. As they sat in the park, Harold carved small wooden animals while the boys took turns trying to shape their own pieces of wood. Tommy was quiet at first, but gradually opened up about his worries at home. "My mom cries sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping," Tommy confided. "I wish I could help her, but I don't know how." Harold set down his whittling knife and looked at both boys seriously. "You know, sometimes the best help we can give someone is to show them they're not alone. Tommy, what makes your mom smile?" "She used to love flowers. We had a little garden at our old place, but we had to move to the apartment and there's no space for plants." Harold's eyes lit up with an idea. "Boys, how would you like to start a secret project?" Over the next week, Harold, Marcus, and Tommy worked on their clandestine mission. Harold used his employee discount at the coffee shop to buy small potted herbs and flowers. The boys made colorful signs with messages like, "You're doing great, Mom," and "We love you." Harold showed them how to arrange the plants in decorative containers they'd found at the thrift store. On Saturday morning, they carefully placed their surprise garden on the steps leading to Tommy's apartment. Harold had also convinced Janet to prepare a care package of coffee, pastries, and a note that simply read, "From a fellow parent who knows how hard you work." When Tommy's mother, Lisa, found the surprise, she broke down in tears, but these were tears of joy and relief. She'd been feeling so isolated, so overwhelmed, that she'd forgotten there were good people in the world who cared about others. Lisa worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and the kindness she'd received inspired her to pay it forward. She began leaving small encouraging notes for her patients, staying a few extra minutes to listen to their worries, and advocating more fiercely for those who couldn't advocate for themselves. One of her patients was an older woman named Dorothy who'd been hospitalized after a fall. Dorothy had no family visitors and seemed to be losing the will to recover. Lisa spent her breaks sitting with Dorothy, sharing stories and encouraging her through physical therapy. "You know," Lisa told Dorothy one day, "someone recently reminded me that we're never truly alone. There are people who care, even when we can't see them." Dorothy began to improve, inspired by Lisa's daily visits and encouragement. When she was finally discharged, Dorothy was determined to make the most of her second chance. She'd always wanted to volunteer but had never taken the step. Now, she signed up to read to children at the local library. Dorothy's first day of volunteering coincided with one of Marcus and Harold's regular library visits. As she read, "Where the Wild Things Are," to a group of fascinated children, Marcus whispered to Harold, "She has a nice voice, doesn't she?" After the reading session, Harold approached Dorothy. "That was wonderful. You have a real gift with children." Dorothy blushed. "Thank you. I'm new to this, but it feels important. Like I'm supposed to be here." "I believe we're all supposed to be exactly where we are," Harold replied. "Would you like to join us for some hot chocolate? Marcus here knows all the best spots in town." As the three walked to the nearby cafe, not the one where Harold worked, but a small